This is Tatsuki Fujimoto. For years, he was called a bad artist by people in the manga industry because he just wasn't that good at drawing. Until one day, he created Chainsaw Man. Fast forward to today, he has received some of the biggest awards you could imagine. The authors of Dandadan, Hell's Paradise, and even Spy Family worked as his assistants, and his manga has sold 30 million copies. So today, I'm gonna show you what he did differently from every other author, and how he went from someone who could barely draw to one of the most legendary manga authors in history. Okay guys, let's be honest. We are living in a crazy time for manga. I mean, nowadays, some of these authors are so wildly talented. We have stuff like Dandadan, Gachiakuta, The Climber, and a ton of other series that just look beautiful. But here's the thing. Tatsuki Fujimoto always felt like there was something wrong with him. Like other artists were just better. Even his fans usually say that he doesn't have the same skills as a lot of other authors. But even though he didn't have these traditional drawing skills, he became an incredible artist in a very different way, with the power of cinema. Literally. If you look at Chainsaw Man, there's a panel that perfectly shows that. It looks absolutely trippy because the entire hallway is bending, which is supposed to feel like a fisheye lens that's used in cinema to give a super, distorted look. And yeah, most people will immediately think about Chainsaw Man when talking about Fujimoto, but I would like to show you a small manga he made called Goodbye, Eri. For almost the entire story, you see the main character filming everything through a camera, which already looks very different. Sometimes you can even see these lines that represent a shaky camera. There's a scene in the beginning of the story where the main character is being told off by one of his teachers for showing a very brutal movie to his class. And during the entire scene, it's basically the exact same panel 9 times where the teacher is just talking to him until the 10th panel where he finally moves. This feels extremely similar to these classic movies instead of something like a traditional manga. But I know you don't want any of that boring stuff, so here's an extremely cool action scene. At some point in Chainsaw Man, this dude and this lady are about to fight. They get into position, and they start. She throws a bunch of punches and falls with a kick. And my man bends his back so low that he manages to dodge it. He defends against another kick, another punch. But watch out, watch out, watch out! He receives a leg to the face and then BAM! Follows with a direct counter attack that lands perfectly. Not only is this some of the best fighting I've seen in manga, it's also really easy to follow and understand what's going on. And also, doesn't that kind of look like something else? Listen, just by reading this, you can tell that this man loves action movies. And sometimes he even includes this insanity in his paneling. Paneling is basically the way a manga author puts the panels on a page to guide the reader's eye. And check this out. This is a fight where a dude's sword is being flicked by a curse that's outside of the page. This is a panel where Devil's finger covers these kids when they disappear. And this is a panel where the character's speech bubble is inside of a building. What is even going on? And trust me, this is just scratching the surface of the visual insanity this man is capable of creating. If you look at his early career, you can already see that he was experimenting with different types of techniques that looked completely different from your regular manga panels. But the better he became as an artist, the more he used these crazy ideas. A few years ago, Fujimoto talked about how he felt about his own art.
If you can draw well, your art looks more convincing, right? I won't be able to convey what I want with mediocre drawing, so I need to improve.
He felt genuinely annoyed, even saying stuff like,
when I see a good artist, it makes me think they must be cheating somehow.
But that feeling pushed him to create something beautiful. Sure, he might not be the best at drawing, but my goodness, this man is a creative genius when it comes to pretty much every other visual thing. He was completely obsessed with movies and the techniques they used to film movies. And instead of seeing this as something useless, he made it his freaking superpower. And that changed everything about how manga could work. And you can just see that love for cinema in almost all his series. There are several scenes in Chainsaw Man where characters watch movies, and Goodbye Eri is literally about a girl who's obsessed with movies. He pushed manga as a medium to its absolute limits and created some of the best looking stuff out there. And that brings me to the second thing that makes him very special. There was always another part of his work that was even more insane than his art. his stories. When you think about your favorite series, they're usually either comedy or drama or something else, or even a mix of these things together. But Fujimoto did something that should absolutely not be possible. He mixed absolutely everything. Love is Blind is one of his early manga, and it's a perfect example of this. This is Ibuki, a student who has one goal that's driving him completely insane. He needs to finally confess his love to Yuri before he graduates. On their cute walk home together, Ibuki goes for it. But out of nowhere, this guy approaches them and asks for Ibuki's help to plan the graduation ceremony. Ibuki, who's, normally this responsible student council president who helps everyone, has absolutely zero interest in helping him right now. So he looks at him and says,
Right now, that's the least of my priorities.
They continue walking until a thief shows up with a freaking knife and tells them to give him their wallet. Ibuki gives him his clothes because he doesn't have a wallet and says,
Right now, that's the least of my priorities.
But as he's finally about to confess, an alien shows up out of nowhere and says that he's going to destroy Earth immediately. Ibuki still refuses to stop, and again, he says,
Right now, that's the least of my priorities.
He confesses his love as the freaking alien and the thief listen like this is the most beautiful thing they've ever seen. The alien goes away, the thief gives back what he stole, and they share a drink while holding hands. It's completely insane and shouldn't work, but it's also kind of beautiful in this really weird way. Behind all of this craziness is just a dude trying to confess his feelings. This is something you can see in all of Fujimoto's work. In Chainsaw Man, there are so many fun, ridiculous, gory moments combined with these beautiful scenes that hit you like a freaking truck. Tatsuki Fujimoto manages to combine so many different genres together in a way that somehow still makes sense. Want a Chainsaw Man that literally surfs on a shark devil's back? Sure, why not? Want a girl who falls at the worst possible moments and causes her mom to get taken away by a tornado? You got it. Want some weird romance? Have it. Want some of the most brutal and sad character moments in manga history? Have it now. Stories usually have a pretty consistent vibe so that the readers know what's going on and what to expect. But Fujimoto created these chaotic stories that go against all freaking logic. And the crazy part is that it doesn't feel random at all. It feels completely natural because all those changes perfectly reflect how messy real life can get. And Fujimoto knows that. It hits different than anything else in manga, and it creates an energy that's very unique to him. All of his manga have this really special flavor where you can immediately tell you're looking at something that came straight out of this strange man's brain. Okay, so now you know that his art style is very different, and his stories are very different. What if I told you that on top of that, Tatsuki Fujimoto also completely changed one of the most important parts of any manga? The characters. This is point number 3. Listen, for literal decades, manga has given us main characters like Naruto, a dude who dreams of becoming a hero to earn everyone's respect, or Luffy, who wants to be the king of pirates and find the One Piece, or Ichigo, who wants to protect his friends. These protagonists are good guys with really noble goals, and they inspire us. But in Fujimoto's world, that just wouldn't feel right. So he went in a completely different direction. This is Agni, the main character from Fujimoto's Fire Punch. This dude lived in a village with his sister, and the special thing about both of them is that they have the power to regenerate their body. And because it's extremely hard to find food in this, cold, very, very cold world, the main thing the villagers eat are pieces of Agni that he then regenerates. Yep. Then he gets burned by this dude, but because his power is to regenerate forever, he spends 8 years desperately trying to hold on to life while constantly burning alive, driven by revenge and his sister's wish for him to simply live. When people read this, everyone expects this straightforward revenge story about a man seeking justice for his village and his sister. Instead, what they get is years of the main character asking himself if revenge is even the right thing to do, which ended in one of the most insane memes ever. Is this guy a regular main character? No. This is Denji, the main character of Chainsaw Man, and his deepest dream, his ultimate life goal, is to get a girlfriend and to have some nice food. That's literally it. But here's the absolute genius of this. The reason Denji is like this is because he's a poor teenager who's never experienced basic human happiness that most people take for granted. He's never had toast with jam, never slept on a good bed. He's been used by a freaking gang. There's this moment when Denji tries to make his friend feel better by starting a kicking tournament on his enemy they just beat. It's absolutely hilarious and, completely insane, but it's also Denji's weird way of showing that he cares about his friend. The beautiful part is that Denji still has that determination of a regular protagonist, but what he wants and how he acts is definitely very different. Even the supporting characters feel insane. This character lies, betrays Denji, she's rude, but on the other hand, she also becomes friends with him and sacrifices herself for him. There's this really cool moment where their captain explains that devil hunters have to be a little bit crazy, but the truth is, I don't think that this just applies to Chainsaw Man. All of Fujimoto's characters are kind of broken in some way. They're kind of similar to the characters we know from other series in a bunch of ways, but they're also much more complicated in other ways. What makes them so genuinely awesome is that a lot of them feel like actual human people. They can be mean, they can have weird goals, they can be selfish, cruel, but at the same time, they can also be kind and funny and goofy. They're incredibly nuanced and relatable in ways that perfect heroes usually are not. Fujimoto understands humans very deeply from his own personal struggles and problems. And that feeling of being flawed is in every single one of his characters. This approach has completely changed how we think about protagonists and characters in modern manga. We still get perfect heroes, here and there, but we're slowly getting more and more of these characters with flawed personalities that feel like real people trying to, just go through real life. Fujimoto proved that you don't need a character who always does the right thing. You need a character who feels real, who struggles with the same stuff we all do, even if they're kind of messed up. They just want to be loved, man. And finally, number 4, the most special thing about Tatsuki Fujimoto. The thing that makes him completely different from almost every author out there is that he does not care. Here's the thing. A lot of manga artists and artists in general have this, little voice in their head telling them stuff like, that's too weird, or fans won't like it, or this might be kind of crazy. And I totally get it. Creating a manga is super freaking difficult, so a lot of people want their work to succeed. But Fujimoto doesn't just ignore that voice, it pretty much feels like he's always doing the freaking opposite of what it tells him. Let me show you. During Chainsaw Man's serialization, Fujimoto and his editor created these character popularity polls where, fans could vote for their favorites. It seemed like a fun little thing, just a way to engage with the community. What could possibly go wrong with showing love for your favorite characters? Right? Unlike other series where popular characters are usually kind of safe, Fujimoto literally slayed almost every single one of them. You like this important character? Bam, they're gone. You like this important character? Bam, they're gone. You like this important character? Okay, you can keep them, that's fine. No, I'm kidding. Bam, they're gone. This wasn't random. It was absolutely calculated to create the maximum emotional impact. As a big fan of Jujutsu Kaisen, I've heard so many people complain about how many characters get slain in this series. Have you guys ever read Chainsaw Man? The other thing he absolutely doesn't care about is our fried brains that just want things super fast. For example, this is a scene in Chainsaw Man where a girl wakes up after a nightmare. After that, we don't see a panel of her immediately doing something cool or interesting. No, we see her feet as she walks. We see her pouring water into a glass, drinking it, and putting it down. There are 3 panels that are basically the same panel, but with the tiniest difference in her freaking facial expression. In Goodbye Eri, there are entire pages where literally nothing happens. While a lot of other artists follow traditional manga flow and pacing, Fujimoto choreographs his panels to very slowly create rhythm and tension. One page, he can have these long, silent sequences without any dialogue whatsoever. And on the next page, he can have some of the fastest, most intense action you've ever seen. So, Fujimoto once said,
Editors tell me that I take 31 pages to do what could be done in 16 pages, and that I should use fewer pages. years. Come to think of it, even now, all my manga takes 31 pages to do what could be done in 16 pages.
He'll sometimes use these insane panels where he'll draw something that looks extremely cool, but kinda random. Like, why are there praying spacemen cut in half while one of the strongest, most brutal devils of all time is about to destroy the good guys? Apparently it represents the Apollo expedition crew that went to space, but still, what the heck? Fujimoto's way of making manga is probably something like, if it's cool or interesting to him, he'll do it, even if it should not work on paper or makes no freaking sense. He follows his instincts and trusts his readers to follow him down the strangest, most unpredictable paths you can imagine. Listen, there isn't too much information about this man online, but almost every single thing we know about him is absolutely insane. There's a famous video of him trying to freaking levitate. He pretended to be his own little sister on Twitter. My man once swallowed his own freaking pet fish. These are not things that most people do, but they show us why he's willing to go places other creators won't even think about. This man has lived a very strange life, and this can be found in his work. He doesn't care about what you want, he doesn't care about what I want. And by constantly breaking our expectations, he keeps us emotionally invested and on edge, never knowing what the heck is going to happen next or which character might randomly explode. Even though Tatsuki Fujimoto was never able to compete on technical skill alone, he found completely new ways to tell stories and connect with readers. His weaknesses became his greatest strengths, and his work has inspired an entire generation of creators to take risks, to trust themselves, and to remember that sometimes the most legendary art comes from the willingness to create something deeper. Fujimoto's work might not be as popular as something like Demon Slayer or Soul Leveling, but it has left an impact on the manga industry that will be remembered for generations.